Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our channel. My name is Seti90, and we're going to be reacting to Rise and Fall of the Sikh Empire by Empathius. However. Alright, we just watched this video, another one of his videos yesterday. I immediately forgot how to pronounce his name, but that's kind of my thing. I don't know how to pronounce anything. Now, if you watched yesterday's video of the history of the Marathas, you will know that I prefaced it with, I know nothing about Indian history. That has not changed. In the day that has passed, I haven't got the knowledge hasn't stuck. So don't expect my usual being able to like connect things to different things, because I don't know anything about Indian history. I just don't. I know in Victoria 2 the Sikh Empire is hard to play as, but it's probably your best bet to form India, but that has nothing to do with anything here. Let's just jump into it. The things I know about Sikhism, I know it's this weird conglomeration religion of Hinduism, Islam, and Buddhism. Like, it's like this weird like mixture of the three. And I know they had gurus and things like that, but I'm not going to try to go too into that. And the Fraser Valley seems to be, the place where I live, the Fraser Valley, seems to be a hotbed for immigration of Sikhs into Canada. If that means anything. But yeah, let's jump into it. They also make amazing food.
The homeland of the Sikh people and faith lies within the fertile river valleys of the Punjab region of northern India and Pakistan. For thousands of years, the Punjab has been the battleground of kingdoms and empires. The Sikh faith was established in the later 15th century by Guru Nanak. He was the first of 10 Sikh gurus who were spiritual leaders during the religion's formation and rapid growth. Beginning in the early 16th century, the Punjab, as well as most of the Indian subcontinent, was conquered by the Mughal Empire. Mughal emperors claimed descent from Tamerlane, as well as Genghis Khan, and inherited their ability for conquest on a massive scale.
Mughal is a translation of the word Mongol. Oh, okay. So they're calling themselves Mongols. Okay.
Years, the Muslim Mughals were largely tolerant of India's numerous religions. In 1567, the Emperor Akbar joined the Sikhs for a meal at a community kitchen called a langar, where a free meal is served to all visitors, regardless of religion, caste, gender, or ethnicity. Afterwards, Akbar met with a third Sikh guru, who he had a very favorable impression of. As the Sikh faith continued to grow, later Mughal emperors viewed the gurus as a potential political threat. After the fifth guru was executed for not following the emperor's orders, the Sikhs began to arm themselves.
You see that a lot with rising religious figures, where the traditional power structure tends to dislike it when the religious structure goes against them. You saw that with the rise of Lutheranism. That's probably the best one, with Protestantism, Lutheranism. But you also saw it in Christianity, at least, with Hans, what's his name? The Bohemian guy. How am I forgetting it? Not Hanseatic, that's the Trade League. Anyway, there was... Not Lollard, that was the English version. You saw it again with Lollardism. I'm blanking on it. But Hussites. I can't remember what the guy's name was. But the Hussites, the guy was the main leader of that, was killed because he was arguing against the church in that particular case. But it works with the similarities of the religious, or like people on the ground are arguing against the higher ups, and the higher ups dislike that and then execute them. That's pretty common throughout history. You saw that with Lollards. With the Waldensians, you saw them getting mushed into the Catholic Church. You see that all around. Jesus is probably a good example of a person arguing against the local customs and then getting executed for it. It happens a lot.
Numerous battles were fought between the Sikhs and local Mughal governors in the Punjab, who sought to disarm them. Tensions subsided as the Mughals became embroiled in internal dynastic conflict. Until again, in 1675, the ninth guru was executed for not following the orders of the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. The slain guru's son succeeded him. Gobind Singh, the 10th Sikh guru, further militarized his followers, forming the Khalsa warrior community. Upon being initiated in
Singh equals lion, Kaur equals princess, name adopted by female members of the Kalas. The 5 Ks, Kesh, uncut hair, Kanga, a wooden comb, Kara, an iron or steel bracelet on the wrist, Karpan, a sword, Kachera, short breeches. Okay.
the Khalsa. The name Singh, meaning lion, was adopted as a family name by all male warriors. Gobind Singh continued the struggle against the Mughals, and at times took refuge in the forests and mountains northeast of the Punjab. Aurangzeb brought the Mughal Empire to its maximum territorial extent, but its vast armies were diminished, and its treasury depleted by the time of his death in 1707. As Gobind Singh traveled to make peace with Aurangzeb's successor, he was assassinated. Before passing away, he ordered that the Sikh holy scriptures, the Guru Granth Sahib, would succeed him as the final eternal living guru. During the following years, the Sikh Khalsa armies, under the leadership of General Banda Singh Bahadur, carved out a short-lived state in the Punjab. The hereditary aristocracy of the Punjab was abolished, and property ownership was granted to anyone who tilled the soil. After a siege,
I didn't realize that Sikhism was so egalitarian. Granted, that's not surprising. I know very little about a great many things, but I had no idea Sikhism was based on super egalitarian ideologies.
Banda Singh Bahadur was captured, tortured, and executed by the Mughals. The Punjab was reconquered, and many Sikh soldiers and civilians were massacred. Surviving Sikhs again.
You tend to see that where religions or ideologies manage to carve out a small state for themselves in a weakening empire. But usually that is like a wake-up call for the empire, at least for like a short time. That's almost like it's almost like an injection booster into the empire, where they then fight super hard to maintain it, reconquer it, and then like get like a little bit of a boost for like 100 years and then fall apart. So you see that throughout history, or not the exact same thing, but you see similar throughout history. I could point to all the different civil wars Rome had, and every one that happened up until the barbarian invasions and the complete collapse of their upper governance structure. You saw after every civil war, it got shorter between the civil wars, and the emperors who took over after them became weaker and weaker and weaker. But you could see how like one civil war, strong leader, slightly faster civil war, stronger leader, trying to make it go a bit longer, but then he dies. Or like it's a diminishing cycle. You see that once empires start going into this cycle, it's like it's not the toilet theory. There's something else. Can't remember what it's called. Let's call it the toilet theory for now. But empires tend to last on like a cyclical thing, right? So as it's going around, it gets shorter and shorter as each time it goes, and then it eventually reaches the point where it completely just fractures and breaks apart. Now, of course, some empires can crawl themselves back from that. It's always possible. But empires and regions and countries are always destined to fall apart. Not no nation. Very few large nations can actually stay together for a sustained amount of time. It's very, very hard. Just because that's the way humans work, and that's the way atrophy works. Look at China if you want a prime example of a place that goes back together, falls apart, goes back together, falls apart, goes back together, falls apart. But yeah, so them breaking free was one of the things that, like, as the empire was going, you could see how, like, it was getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, because this was done in what? That's the volume. This was done in what year? 1700, and they fell apart, what, in the 1750s, 1760s? Something like that? Technically, they died in the 1850s, but I think the last video of the Marathas were taking over pretty soon, so, like, this was, like, a last dying gasp of them being like, okay, we can hold on for another, and then, like, they gotta, like, maybe this guy was killed or something, and then, or the ruler that ended up conquering them was killed or died early. That happens a lot. Good leaders tend to die early, and then it just rapidly spun the cycle. happens in a lot of
property
empires.
ownership was granted to anyone who tilled the soil. After a siege, Banda Singh Bahadur was captured toward
Also, if you're wondering why I'm rambling a bunch, I ate an edible like 3 hours ago, and it's probably still affecting me. So if you made it this far and are wondering why it's a little less coherent than normal, there you go.
tortured and executed by the Mughals. The Punjab was reconquered, and many Sikh soldiers and civilians were massacred. Surviving Sikhs again fled to the forests and the mountains, and waged a guerrilla war against the Mughals. By the early 1730s, the exhausted Mughals made peace with the Sikhs, and allowed them to return to settle their land and a degree of self-rule.
That happened even faster, 30 years, okay.
In 1738, the weakened Mughal Empire's capital city of Delhi was ravaged, sacked, and plundered of its great wealth by the Iranian Afsharid dynasty of Nader Shah.
Yeah, the Iranian, yeah. The new Persian Empire, basically.
Shortly after the Marathas subjugated the remnant of the Mughal Empire as its vassal, the Punjab was overrun by the Afghan armies of Ahmad Shah Durrani, who defeated the Marathas while suffering massive casualties at the Third Battle of Panipat. Despite repeated invasions and massacres of Sikh civilians in the later half of the 18th century, the Afghans were never able to fully subdue the Sikhs. Since the death of Banda Singh Bahadur, the Sikhs were organized in a loose confederation of sovereign communities, ruled by the Khalsa fraternity of Sikh warriors. After gaining control of the eastern Punjab, these small states began fighting against each other whenever not threatened by the Afghans, until they were all united by the 20-year-old warlord, Ranjit Singh. In 1801, he was crowned Maharaja of the Sikh Empire. He repeatedly defeated the Afghans in major battles, driving their armies out of the Indian subcontinent as far as the mouth of the Khyber Pass. During his 38-year-long reign, Sikh control expanded over the entire Punjab and to the north and south. The empire was prosperous and internally peaceful. His inclusive reformed government and military included Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims, European military experts, and soldiers of fortune. The army was rigorously trained and modernized, especially in the use of artillery. The Sikh Empire only lasted for 10 more years after Ranjit Singh's death. He had maintained peace with the British.
Yeah, the British. And the British don't really accept peaceful relations with their neighbors, especially things that they think they can conquer. Well, that's true with all imperialists.
British East India Company, while it had conquered the Hindu Maratha Confederacy to the south. The next 3 Sikh Maharajas that succeeded Ranjit Singh were all assassinated. The empire was thrown into turmoil, as the next Maharaja was a young child. The Sikh army...
Yeah, that political turmoil tends to be the main reason why India managed to get conquered so quickly. And it's kind of a miracle that China didn't get conquered in the same way, because China was having a similar issue. But politically infighting things like that is like, if they would have had like 1 or 2 long stretches of rulers, right? They would have been able to fend off the British before like the British were actually able to push forward. Because in a straight up fight, the British would have had a lot harder of a time actually conquering them. But with political fratricide, this counts for pretty much all of India. With political fratricide, you basically made it easy. It became easy, and oftentimes the British purposely caused the political turmoil. But yeah, so it makes sense how they ended up getting conquered, because political turmoil is always the death of empires, and it's never something you want to do if you have an enemy at the gates. But of course, no one ever thinks of that. They always think of their own goals. But that's just how it is. So it's amazing to think that without a bunch of serendipitous luck, the British would never been able to conquer as much of India as they did. They would have conquered some of India, don't get me wrong. They would have conquered some of India, but the British got incredibly fucking lucky. They got very, 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 very lucky a lot of times. Like the cards were always in their favor, basically. It was ridiculous. But if the British wouldn't have conquered India, India wouldn't be a country. It would be the Balkans. It's also amazing that China, off to the side, didn't get the exact same experience, because they were also dealing with massive internal issues. But everybody was trying to keep everybody else out of China so they could be the one to take over China, and that ended up meaning no one took over China until the Japanese did for a little while.
Army doubled in size and assumed much of the practical control of the empire. A British observer at the time described the empire as being ruled by a dangerous military democracy. Taking advantage of this internal instability, the British East India Company began amassing troops on the Sikh border. War broke out, with both sides accusing the other of the first hostile actions. After several costly battles, peace was negotiated, where the northern territories of Jammu and Kashmir were ceded to the British, as well as valuable territory in the eastern Punjab. Tensions remained high, and a second Anglo-Sikh war broke out only 2 years later. During the Sikh Wars, both sides gained a mutual respect for each other's fighting prowess, by the end of which, the British East India Company had annexed the Sikh Empire. During the following Company and British colonial rule in India, Sikhs were both feared and respected for their martial ability. Despite only accounting for approximately 2% of India's population, hundreds of thousands of Sikhs served in the army during the British Raj. Sikhs were noted for their loyalty, skill, and bravery, particularly during the First and Second World Wars. After overcoming centuries of adversity, today there are over 27 million Sikhs worldwide, with the majority still living in the Punjab. This has been Epimetheus. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notifications every time I make a new video like this.
That was great. I love that video. I learned a lot. We'll see in the next video if I actually managed to keep any of it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Go like, go subscribe, everything else like that. They deserve all the love and happiness, and everything else like that. Do they have a Patreon? Let's go look. Sorry, I was like processing. They do have a Patreon. Go subscribe to their Patreon. Is that what you call it? Subscribe to Patreon. Go join the Patreon. I don't have the money to do it, so maybe you do. Other than that, if you liked my particular rambly commentary on this, give me a like, give me a sub, everything else like that. Love, butts, and happiness, everything else like that. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Also, don't take an edible right before you're about to do a video, because it makes the video a bit weird. Bye.